Hi. Um, so I really enjoyed learning about cissexism this week. I had never really heard the term cisgender before I started taking this class. And I like that term more than any of the other terms. But so cissexism is basically just, discrimination against transgender people. Because cisgender means you identify with, so I'm a female and I identify as a female. Um, but my favorite part of this week's module was looking at the portraits. It made me really happy. I even made a list of names of like my favorite ones, and one of them was Rachel, Hank and Sam, and Alexis, and I they just seemed so themselves, and that makes me happy with like seeing them, you know, being happy, and also being an older generation because when I think about it, I'm like, oh, even it's hard as it is in my generation right now. I've never even thought about it in generations before. So seeing like that older generation, I didn't even I didn't think that they would even think to do that, and so it made me really happy. And that kind of stuff has always made me happy. My I don't even know if this correlates, but my favorite memory for my 16th birthday, um, my mom has an apartment in New York, and so for my 16th birthday, I went there to New York City for the Pride Parade, um, and that was the most amazing experience I had ever been through. I'm pretty sure I cried with my mom. Like it was literally like Disney World is not the happiest place on earth. I'm sure any of the Pride parades are. It was just so amazing to see everyone being themselves, and seriously, everyone around you is just so happy. Like they're like, this is me, and I'm happy, and that makes me happy. And that's like one of my favorite memories of my entire life is going to that huge Pride parade in New York City um, when I was 16. But yeah. And then I also liked the podcast with Trey Jenkins. And I also liked in the beginning of the podcast how they did like a little news recap of kind of things that related to the transgender community. Um, because some of the things that they had mentioned in that little news recap, I didn't know that was happening, um, let alone would be happening previously or is going to continue to happen. I would just have no idea. But I also really liked Trey Jenkins. So he's a he has a master's in social work. And he mainly does research, but he likes to get people involved in his research rather than just like generalizing to the whole. Like he likes to get like real people involved in communities. And so then he started talking about his transition and how he's a dad and he loves being a dad, and his son was very little when he was going through his transition. Um, and the other person talking was saying the same way. And I guess I never really thought about how I would approach, like if I had a child, how I would approach, talking about that with them. Um, but they were like, it was good that they would ask the kids, how are you doing with my transition? Like, because I know it affects you too. And I guess as simple as it sounds, like I wouldn't have known to do that and like taken that approach. But also Trey Jenkins gave a very good point, how black women and men, either feel completely invisible in the world, or especially with black women, they can be hypersexualized. Um, and especially with him being a black trans man, uh, he could go about his days and just no one would know, and no one would ask him questions. It was like he was living his previous life, which could be a blessing and a curse because he could be invisible, like you said, and just go about his days as normal, or he can be hyper visible and like people are demanding him to be an advocate, and which is a lot of pressure, and or people see him as dangerous, which makes a lot of sense, and is kind of sad that it's either there's two ends of the spectrum. You're either completely invisible and people don't really notice, and you can go about your days. And he was like, that is good, but that's not me. I don't want to just hide it. I did this for a reason. This is me. But at the same time, having to almost not like forced to be an advocate, but just that extra pressure of like, you're hyper visible and like everyone knows you're transgender, and so you should be advocating for it. But he does want to be. He was talking about what like he wished he had for himself, and he was really adamant on he really wants to be a mentor for others, because that's something he would have wanted for himself, which makes sense with, as the generations go up, I feel like there are more people who could be mentors for others, and with him being an older guy, he, probably just didn't have that mentor, which is, hard enough as it is to go through. But overall, I really liked learning about sexism this week.